Welcome to another episode of Women Investing in Women. Robin and I are thrilled and truly honored to bring different change makers and impactful women to be featured in our program week after week. Our goal is to create an environment of abundance so women start understanding and model the behavior and journeys they are seeing and hearing so that we take each other where we go and lift each other up, amplify each other's voice, and celebrate each other. Not just the ones who are bringing impact and mentoring, but also the women who are being mentored and guided to make an impact, because we want to feature both the giver and the receiver to share and build an ecosystem that is self-sustaining and recognize and amplify the messages and voices of women from all walks of life so that we truly are a part of creating that sense of abundance, because society has traditionally put us in a scarcity place. We are in a scarcity place where we have to compete for everything, and breaking the cycle requires consistent rule breaking and norm breaking. And that is one of the things Robin and I love about this program. And today, to have a conversation with us is an exciting guest. Robin is going to go into the details, but you want to stay tuned because this woman is helping dress women in particular types of clothing through different aspects of a woman's journey. And women, we know, go through a variety of journeys. And not all clothing stores support us, understand us, and looks like half the time they want us all to be zero and long. And how do we break those trends and truly celebrate us, our bodies, our shapes, and our needs as life evolves? Take it away, Robin.
All right. I am so excited to introduce Cindy Trice. And what's wonderful about this is we were actually introduced to Cindy by a prior guest, Jessica Papineau, who deals with fashion and helping women feel good in fashion. And Cindy has a very unusual purpose and story in that she creates clothing for women who have suffered or are suffering with cancer. And she creates clothing for women along the entire journey of cancer. And so I will say this is probably going to be one of our most unique interviews. So Cindy, tell us how you started in this very unusual field of creating clothing that's appropriate for women in every stage when they are going through cancer.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you both for having me on. I'm super excited, and I love the mission that you all are aiming for to help support women. So my journey with this whole thing started literally a few months after I graduated from veterinary school, and I was diagnosed with advanced cervical cancer. And as a result, I was hospitalized multiple times for chemotherapy. I was treated with radiation therapy. I had some complications and ended up being in the hospital for those. So basically, I was in the hospital a lot. And I had a good friend gave me a pair of pajamas while I was in the hospital, and that was my favorite gift that I got because it made such a difference in how I felt. And I was game, of course, to wear the hospital gown, and I honestly didn't even realize the difference that it would make to wear something else until I was wearing something else. It made a difference for how I felt when I would walk around the nurse's station with my IV pole to get some exercise. I just felt more dressed. It made a difference because at the time I was dating this guy who is now my husband. And when he would come to visit me, I felt better being dressed. And there are actually studies that show that that women feel better, people feel better when they have their own clothing. They feel more empowered in their own healthcare when they have their own clothing on. And there's also studies that show that the medical staff treats them differently when they have their own clothing on. So it's a very interesting dynamic. And what it made me realize is that, clothing does matter for how you feel, whether you're dressing well for some high-powered business meeting, or whether you're ill and you're sick and you're in the hospital or you're in recovery at home, that feeling comfortable, having clothing that's functional, but that's also beautiful and that you feel good in, even though it may be loungewear or recovery wear.
That is amazing as you talk through, you drawing from your own journey to then show up for women, knowing that others are going through this, right? And a lot of times, women, even when they're sick, they have to take care of their other responsibilities. And taking care of them or thinking about themselves becomes a secondary thing. What did you learn in your journey through that process about prioritizing you? And how, through the work you do, you're helping women understand that and truly live like that. It's almost like putting, not almost, it is like putting the mask for yourself in the plane when the oxygen mask drops. A lot of times we've been too busy getting the mask for others. So I'm curious to see how you got there and how the work you do is directly or indirectly guiding women to get there.
Yeah, that's really interesting, the oxygen mask analogy. There is a phenomenon that happens with women undergoing cancer, and I think anyone who's been through that journey will appreciate what I'm saying. There is a lot of messaging for you to stay positive, right? And to be brave, stay positive. And there is the connotation that will somehow affect your outcome. So if you have a bad outcome, that messaging can make you feel like I'm responsible for this bad outcome because dang it, I wasn't positive enough. I didn't stay positive enough, and if you have a good outcome, which is what we hope for, you may have not had a positive outcome or a positive, attitude about it the whole time, but you still had a positive outcome. And I think that messaging is dangerous. And I think there are other ways. I felt many times that I had to be positive to protect the people around me. It wasn't really actually for me. It wasn't even to protect my own outcome. It was so that I wouldn't make my friends uncomfortable, or I wouldn't worry my parents, or I was so worried about worrying other people that I would sometimes put on a fake front when I was feeling scared or vulnerable or just yucky in general. And so again, like when I would get into more comfortable clothes or feel more dressed or feel more put together from a clothing perspective, it was so much more than just pretending. It literally lifted me up. It literally lifted my psyche, which helped me have a more genuine positivity that was coming from how how I was genuinely feeling, rather than what I felt I needed to do in order to A, save my own life, or B, make other people feel comfortable, if that makes sense.
This is really, really very fascinating because I have a master's in applied positive psychology. So
Okay.
I am all about, you being appropriately positive. I call it durable optimism and realistic positivity. There is also a concept, and studies do show that when people are positive, it does help. But what you're saying is a very good point. And there's also the notion of what's called toxic positivity, where you're being positive in a way that is not truly useful. And so it's this notion of balancing, yes, being positive, yes, looking for a positive outcome, but also being, having enough psychological safety that you can be vulnerable and you can be honest and say, today, I just don't feel very good. This too shall pass. This too shall pass. So my question is, well, eventually we'll get my question was going to be how you even got into this journey, but we'll get into that in another question. But what I want to ask now to follow up from this topic is, how did you then navigate that being honest with also being positive just within your own self?
Well, I felt a few things started to happen is once I let go a little bit and allowed myself to be vulnerable with my loved ones. And some of that really honestly came from just sort of fatigue from putting on the brave face so that I wouldn't make people uncomfortable. I got fatigued with that. So there were times where I did break down. And once I did, and I admitted that I was really scared and those kinds of things, something magical happened, that the positivity started coming more naturally and more authentically and more genuinely. And I started to see all the silver linings that come from a challenge in life. And every challenge has silver linings. And you may not notice them at first or even ever, but there's something that when you can, I loved that you use the term psychological safety. I had a good medical team and a good and family members and friends who gave me that safety. And that is what cracks open the ability to be genuinely appropriately positive and to genuinely see where silver linings are happening.
Absolutely. Makes total sense. And what is coming up for me is there is more and more diagnosis that is happening for women with different health related issues. And we're seeing more of that across all the populations. But the stress levels of women and having to juggle work and family and everything else, right? So burden is larger on women, their stress levels are larger. And therefore, the toxic chemistry in the body is because of the stress is greater. And we are seeing that directly correlated to some of the illness trends we are seeing. Are you seeing, based on the work you do and the women you're supporting, any particular type of illness and recovery that is better supported through the work you're doing? Or are you seeing that when women take care of themselves and care about how they dress and make themselves feel good, the propensity to get sick and some of those other negative physiological things kind of diminish? Are you seeing any trends?
Well, I mean, as a company, we don't do studies on things like that. So we don't really know from our, studies on our customers who have, engaged in wearing our clothing, what are their outcomes and how do they feel? I mean, it certainly would be interesting, but there are studies out there that do talk about those things. But to your point about stress and having to juggle a lot of different things and how stress can contribute to your health. I mean, there's a bazillion studies on that, right? We all know that stress lowers your immune system and can have an effect on your health. And then when you get into a health crisis, that in and of itself is stressful. So you do worry about how that stress affects your outcome. And women are juggling all sorts of different things. And I think what we want to do at Cake and Pajamas is help with just one little piece of that, right? We want to help relieve some level of stress, provide some level of comfort for women. And we've always wanted, I mean, my goal as a company has always been that we are about giving back. The whole reason our name is Kick It Pajamas is because we want to help kick cancer off the planet. And if you look at our logo, the K is kicking the C, and that's what that represents. So we donate a portion of proceeds to cancer patient support organizations, but we're starting to hone in and think about access to care and helping women get access to care. And we're still kind of honing in on how we're going to help with this, but we're going to become much more targeted in how we help women. And there are such disparities in access to care. And for an example, I'm a cervical cancer survivor. Cervical cancer is one of the cancers that we can literally kick off the planet. We can be done with cervical cancer. We have the tools to do it. And we know how to get rid of this cancer. But it's not gone yet. And the World Health Organization has a goal to eliminate cervical cancer from the planet. So we want to help support those kinds of things. And there's a whole pipeline, right, of things that need to be done to eliminate that. But one of them is getting women access to care in the first place. So if they're going to so we prevent it, or if they do get diagnosed, we get the diagnosis early when it can be cured. And so I'm actually not sure. I think I veered from answering your question, which I apologize, but I was really eager to talk about how we want to help women get access to care. That it isn't, we want to help women feel better and have clothing that makes them feel better and help them with that stressor, but we want to do something much bigger for women, and that is help women who what they're wearing isn't even on their radar. They just need healthcare. So
yeah, this is really amazing. I'm loving this direction that you're now that your company is growing and stronger, that you're now moving into something else. But I'm still very curious, is how did you even think, I'm going to go make some clothing for women? How did that even occur to you? How did you do it? And I always love to hear about what are some of the challenges that people faced, either internally or externally, in doing this amazing and completely unusual thing that you're doing.
Well, honestly, anyone who knows me would laugh to know that I am the founder of a clothing company, because I am known amongst my friends to be the least fashionable person out there until Jessica came along, and Jessica has helped me. This cute necklace and shirt, Jessica is responsible for it. That's Jessica Papineau, who was on your show before. But I'm a vet. I wear scrubs all the time. I'm not thinking about things like this. And I knew I didn't know anything about fashion or design or anything, but I knew one thing. I knew that those pajamas that my friend gave me made me feel better. Actually, I knew two things. And the second thing I knew was that the medical staff didn't have easy access that they needed, that the standard hospital gown would have provided for them. But they still let me wear the PJs. So I did what a lot of entrepreneurs do. When you don't know anything about anything, you just go find people who do. So I went to a fashion school in Tampa, and I just started emailing instructors and asking them, I have this idea. Why don't they just make cute pajamas with snaps on the sleeve? And could you help me spin up a prototype? And so eventually I got someone to say yes. And that started me on the journey. And challenges, oh boy, there have been challenges, so many challenges along the way. And in fact, I had cancer in 2004. So that was when the idea sparked. I didn't start working in it in earnest until about 2008. I worked on it from about 2008 to 2012 by myself, trying to figure out how the heck to do this, making prototypes, coming up with the name, coming up with some branding, like me sketching on a piece of paper, really back of the napkin stuff. And I just threw it in the closet. I just couldn't get it up and off the ground. But the power of women. My best girlfriend, one of my best girlfriends growing up, who was a business person, met these women who own a children's clothing company called Smockingbird. They had the expertise. They were looking to expand and do something else. So basically, long story short, the four of us got together. So we're four women co-founded and relaunched Kick It Pajamas as a proper company in really 2021. It was December 2020, but for all intents and purposes, we can call it January 2021. And so we are all about women. All of us, all four of us have been affected by cancer in some way. I'm the only survivor, but our co-founder, Anna, was a caregiver for cancer patients. She lost both her mom and her dad just a few months apart. to 2 different kinds of cancer when she was just in her 20s. And so we all come at this with such a strong purpose.
I am so glad to hear that your network of women actually showed up for you, right? And the people were there to make this possible. So that truly sits squarely in what we are showcasing and amplifying. And thank you so much for sharing that. And as you continue your journey and continue to make this impact, I have a two-part question. How can people get a hold of you and engage with you? One, and two, how are you actually turning around and paying it forward to help other entrepreneurs and business people the same way you were helped?
So people can reach me at Cindy@kickitpajamas.com. You can go to kickitpajamas.com and check out our website, and you can reach out to us from there as well. And how I'm paying it forward to other entrepreneurs. So I'm a double entrepreneur. I still work as a veterinarian. I founded a veterinary software company. I sold it to another veterinary software company, and I now work for them. So I do a lot of work helping my veterinary colleagues, which, by the way, veterinarians are now majority women, helping my veterinary colleagues who are getting into the entrepreneurial space. And I am always an open book and an open resource. People can connect with me on LinkedIn. Like I said, they can email me at cindy@kickitpajamas.com. So many people, when you start an entrepreneurial journey, which can be scary, and when you're solo founded and bootstrapped like I was for both companies originally, it can feel a little bit lonely. But once you're willing to start talking to people and networking, and you have a real mission, you have a real purpose behind what you're doing, it is amazing the hands that start reaching out to help. And it may be helping in a little way for just a tiny period of time, or it may be someone that becomes part of your entrepreneurial journey and becomes deeply involved. And you can't necessarily tell who those people are. But I've been helped by both men and women, but there have been a lot of women in my network who have supported me. So I am always happy to be a resource for other people.
Yeah, I'm living your story that these just a few women coming together and creating this thing. And isn't that the truth on so many wonderful things that are happening in our world? It's a great story, a great example. And as the time has totally flown by, we'd always like to hear what is a final golden nugget that you would like to share with the women who listen to this podcast later on.
I guess I have two. I would say one, please look after your health. Go get your annual checkups to be preventive about getting cancer. It can make a huge difference. And also, I would say, if you're an aspiring entrepreneur or you have an idea, don't be afraid to reach out to people. You'll get some no's, you'll get ignored sometimes, but you may be surprised at how many people are willing to help. So don't be afraid to talk to people, reach out to strangers, people you admire, and you'll be amazed where that can take you.
How can we get a hold of you? How can our audience get a hold of you and engage with you?
So you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm Cindy Trice. You can reach out to me, Cindy@kickitpajamas.com, or you can connect with us at kickitpajamas.com, the website.
Thank you so much, Cindy. It's amazing how quickly time flies. And you have shared some great insights with us and quite a few nuggets of wisdom and food for thought. And the fact that you are juggling being a veterinarian and doing this while being a woman and doing all the other things that you don't get paid for is a testament to the resiliency and the impact you are creating. And for that, we not just celebrate you, we're so grateful. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. This was really fun, and I appreciate what you all are doing.
Thank you. And as we bring this to a close to our audience out there, you just heard some of the insightful comments and wisdom from Cindy. Think about that, reflect on it, and come to terms with what do you need to do for you? What makes you feel good so that you can show up in your place of peace and power? And from that place of peace and power, you can drive your goals, you can drive your success, and you can drive your healing, whatever is your need at this moment. When you show up in your element, you are going to succeed, and you're going to succeed because there are good men and women around you to support you. But you also need to show up with that positivity and with that joy. And how you look and how you feel goes a long way towards it. So do reach out to Cindy. Do think about what's going to help you. And let's find the time and place to celebrate you too.